Welcome back. So this lesson, what we're going to do is we're going to start actually making a login form right here. So we can click login right here. Now let's just start up by jumping into our code right here. Because first of all, we're going to need a few modules, and I'm just going to add them right now because I've tried a few times now to kind of forget it. So I'm going to start up by actually adding the flex layout module to this auth module right here because I know I'm going to need that. I also am going to need something called the reactive forms module just to kind of have that one in there as well. And I think those are the most important ones for now. I'll get back to a few mat components I need, or modules I need as well. But what I want to do is I want to kind of try and create a reactive form. Now you can go under Angular IO, fundamentals, forms, and reactive forms, and there's a lot in here you can read. But what I want to kind of start using is this form builder to kind of create my forms. Now there's a good example kind of mid-page, something like this, where it kind of explains how to make a pretty big form right here. So that's what we're going to try and do. Now we're not going to add validators right now. We'll do that in the next lessons. But we are going to use a form group. We are going to use a form builder. So let's just get started right there. Jumping into my code, what I need to do is jump into my login component. And there I'm going to start working with this reactive form. And the first thing again I want is kind of a form builder. So I'll make a form builder here and I'll just import the form builder. Again, remember to get that module in there so that you can actually access this guy. Sweet, so now we have the form builder available, and I'm not going to make a create form, I'm just going to do it directly in the constructor, and this is kind of how we create a form. Okay, so let's just create a form group up here, and I'm going to call this one the login form, and that's going to be of the type form group like this. Now again, I'm pretty much just borrowing code from here, right? Hero form, form group, so this is not something I'm inventing myself, this is just a way to work with forms inside Angular reactive forms. Sweet, so now we have the form group available. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to create the form by actually creating a new group right here. Let's just try and do that. I'll say in the constructor right here, I'll say this.login form is equal, and then I'm going to use the form builder to kind of create a group. Now a group is pretty much just a way for me to define all the input fields that I want in my form. And in my case, we're going to have an email and we're going to have a password right here. So I just need two input fields inside. It's pretty much just a basic JavaScript object, right? So I'm going to add these two input fields inside this JavaScript object. The first one is going to be email. There we go. And let's just put that as a blank field for now. And the other one is going to be the password one. And let's just put that as a blank field as well. There we go. So now we pretty much set up a form group, and we can now use that to kind of create a form inside our HTML code. Jumping back to the example and scrolling down, this is kind of a simple form group that he built right here. And I'm just going to copy the form itself just to get started right here. And jumping into my code again, let's just remove this login work and just add the form instead. And then I'm just going to put an end tag in here to kind of end the form. There we go. Now our form is not called the hero form, it's the login form. Well, that's all I had to change. Now I kind of have my form group set up right here. Sweet. Jumping back to the code, what's next? I'm not going to use, this is actually written against Bootstrap. So we have to make a change right here. How do we make a form input field inside material design? So jumping into material design, components, and form field. There we go. Examples, just to kind of get an example right here. And let's just try and see what we're doing here. We're going to add a mat form field, right? This is what we're going to do. Now this is where it gets kind of hairy. I've had to Google this a little bit because this didn't work as I expected. But here we're going to get an email right here. Now notice right away, guys. You'll say right away, you need to use the mat form field, my friend, and you are right. So I'm jumping into the auth modules right here. I'll do a comma, and I'll say I want to use the mat form field module. That makes sense, right? So now this should solve itself, and I have no more errors. Let's just see if that works. There we go. So this should be working perfectly now. But there's a small thing. I'm not sure if it's inside the actual API. I couldn't find it anywhere. It doesn't say anywhere that you need more than a form field. But you actually do. You need to have the form field, but you also need to have the input field, or else you'll actually get an error. Let me just try and see if I'm getting this error already. Yeah, there we go. Something is popping up right here. Let me just try and scroll up. Mat form field must contain a mat form field control. If you see that error, it's actually because you're missing another module. And it's pretty hard to kind of see, so you have to Google it. But this mat input right here is actually another module that we need. So going back to my auth module right here, I also need to import a mat input module right here. you just have to Google that if this thing happens for you, right? So I Googled it, spent too much time on it, and I figured out that's what I had to do. And there we go. Now we actually have this one available as well. So now the mat form is actually there, and I can see this blinky effect right here. We have the first input field. Let's just add another input field because I also had the password one. Now this is another thing I spend way too much time Googling right here, because the problem right here is going to be that the password field is actually going to start auto-completing in Chrome, on the Mac at least. I don't know if it'll happen on your machine as well, but on the Mac, as soon as I set the type being equal to password, that's something you kind of want, because you want, when people start typing in password right here, you want it to be dots. You don't want to show the actual password. But notice how helpful Chrome is. It tries to kind of just auto-complete this for me. I don't want that, Chrome. Please don't help me. Now I've Googled it. I can't find a fix for it, so you'll just have to live with it. Or you can figure out your own fix if you can find one. So right now we have the form field set up as a reactive form, and we also have it set up with some material design information. We are almost there. We need one more thing, and that's to add the form controls name right here. And that's pretty much binding an input field together with our group. So for instance, we have this guy, the email input field right here. I want to bind that. This is just placeholder, this is just the name. And then I want to bind this guy to the actual email field inside my TypeScript file right here. So here I have the email field. Now because I put in this single form control email right here, it's bound together with this email field now right here, and I can get that value later when I need to kind of try and log in. Sweet. I want to do the same for the password field. Let me just try and go down here and do exactly the same thing. There we go. Now we've set them both up, right? So that's pretty much all I had to do. Now I have some kind of login fields right here. Of course, I still miss a button, right? Let's just add that button as well. So we'll just input a button right here. Actually, let me just go and grab a button because I'm just lazy. So I'm just going to go and grab a button from my toolbar right here. I'm just going to grab this guy, simple fab button right here, and I'll just add that in the end, mini fab. It's going to have that accent, that's okay, and I'll just make a login click event right here. Now it needs, let's not add an icon, let's just write login right here. Pretty simple stuff. And then I kind of want to go and add this login function right down here in my code, right? There we go. So I think we are at a point now where I can kind of stop this lesson and we can say now we have some kind of, not pretty, but we have some kind of page that we can write two values and we can press a login button. Now notice again, the button is squared because I forgot to get the mat button module. There we go. Tough stuff, tough stuff. But let's try and see. There we have, now we have the rounded button and everything seems to work. Next lesson we're going to try and use this and maybe just add a card around it, something like that. See you next time, have fun.